Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. I have a great guest here today with us, Patrick Jamnik, president of Episurf. Very cool company. They've got a personalized 3D imaging assessment and customized implants for joint replacement. So definitely an interesting personalized medicine play here. Patrick, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Mike?
Good. Appreciate you hopping on here. So what I thought would be good to get started with would be to just have you kind of, run through just a brief overview of the company, kind of the origin story. How did you get involved in it? Obviously, we'll get into, some of the technologies in detail here in a little bit in the use case, but just give the audience a quick brief background on or overview of the company and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. So Episurf Medical, it's a Swedish-based company, headquartered in Stockholm. We were founded by an orthopedic surgeon a little bit over 10 years ago, Professor Leif Reed. Leif was a surgeon at the Karolinska Institute. And around the time of his late 50s, Leif sort of started to sense a problem and had some pain in his own knee. And he sort of self-diagnosed pretty quickly, as you can imagine a surgeon would do. And he realized pretty quickly that he was too old for a lot of typically would be thought of as more biologically centered treatments. He was too old for a lot of those types of treatments to really take hold well in him. And at the same time, his knee was very painful, but it was not damaged to the point yet where he would really need a total knee replacement. And he knew the sort of surgical options that would be available to him and realized pretty quickly that everything that he would be offered represented either sort of an under-treatment or an over-treatment compared to his specific condition. And that's really where the ideas behind Episurf sort of took hold. Now, I got involved with the company about 15 months or so ago. I was introduced to our board chairman through a mutual connection that we both know. And I took interest pretty quickly in the company. I sort of saw that there's a number of observable trends in orthopedics that are all taking place right now. One is personalization. You hear sort of every company out there and surgeons talking about the desire for personalized solutions. Two, everyone wants procedures and equipment that is what I'll call ASC or ambulatory surgery center friendly. They want, certainly in orthopedics, they want to be able to do things outside of the traditional hospital setting if possible. Three, there's an increased need from regulators around the world for the amassing of clinical data. And four, there's this sort of trend of a combination of, and I don't think it's a trend long term, it's a here to stay type of thing, this combination of the integration of hardware and software and how those things work together. And very much is sort of what we're doing at Episurf is we're using on a per patient level, not just a macro, let's just use software to design something and then make 100,000 of them. On a per patient level, we're using software to provide a better hardware solution for surgeons and the patients that they treat. So there was all of those sort of trends that I saw that Episurf seemed really, uniquely able to kind of capitalize on. And then as I sort of did my own due diligence, I kind of saw what I thought was a company that was sitting on a really good foundation. So if I can use a house analogy for a minute, the foundation of every house, it's expensive, it's time consuming to put down, it's frankly a little boring compared to a lot of the other aspects of selling a house, but it's absolutely pivotal. And once it's down in place, you never want to have to go back and change it. You want to leave it there forever. And as I started sort of talking to more people, not only surgeons that I knew, but people within the company and did my own due diligence, Episurf really struck me as a company that was sitting on a really good foundation. So the things in building a medical device company that take a long time, are maybe not as sexy as some of the other aspects, but once you do them right, and you can sort of benefit from them for a long time. Things like clinical studies, the quality system, all of those sort of things that exist behind the scenes that are very expensive if you have to go back and repair them. I just saw a really, really strong foundation, and it seemed right to, it seemed like a great opportunity for some people to come along and really start to take this good foundation and put the walls and the roof
Sure.
and put the furniture and the paint and all of those types of things to it. So it's been a wonderful experience so far, and we're really, in a lot of ways, we're sort of just getting started and really able to now kind of bear a lot of the fruit from that foundation laying that has taken place over the last number of years.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's, you mentioned, that you weren't looking for something that had, just like software to create a device and then make 1,000 of them. And that's the way, in a lot of ways, kind of the analogy or the way I see digital health cannibalizing medtech, or medtech cannibalizing digital health, depending on how you look at it, is, our business used to be, you create something, you get FDA approval, you package it, and you sell a bunch of them. And it's not like that anymore. It's there's there's so many differences now between our business 10 years ago and what it looks like now, from the standpoint of, you're really creating oftentimes bespoke solutions, but also there's so many different other peripheral technologies that might not even that the company might not even own, they might have to forge software partnerships or hardware partnerships that play into the overall success of that device. And so, picking the right partners and developing the right software that can create these solutions is every bit as important as the solution itself. That's just a unique evolution of the business that I think is fun to watch happen. Before we get into the technologies, can you share, what's the use case that these technologies are addressing in the market? How do the technologies we're going to talk about benefit the surgeon? How do they benefit the patient?
Sure. So at our core, what we really aim to do is, through the use of both our hardware and software offerings, what we are really aiming to do is alleviate some of the stress that surgeons have in caring for the middle-aged, or what we call gap patient. So when I say gap patient, I'm loosely talking about between the ages of 40 and 60. Could be younger, could be older on the edges, but you're sort of middle-aged patient. And if you go back to how a lot of orthopedic surgeons are trained after a 5-year residency program, about 90% now go and do a 1-year fellowship in some sort of subspecialty. And if you are, for example, a surgeon who treats knees, there's so much knee surgery done that unlike in Europe, the surgeons sort of tend to subspecialize within knee surgery in the US in sort of by age brackets a little bit. And you can go and do a sports medicine fellowship where you get really, really proficient in treating athletes and getting athletes back to, high-end activity levels, repairing ACLs, repairing meniscus. They do rotator cuffs, those types of
performance restoration.
Yes, yeah, well put. Conversely, there's a whole other group of surgeons that go on and do a 1-year fellowship in adult reconstruction, and that's a nice word for joint replacement or arthroplasty. And those surgeons are seeing patients on the older end of the spectrum, people who, through largely wear and tear types of circumstances, have worn their joints out and they need their joints replaced. The downside of all of that subspecialization is that a lot of people who are sort of in the middle, who are in pain, who are missing certain aspects of mobility that they would like to do, but are not ready for a joint replacement, they need something. And it's well sort of known and understood that as patients age, a lot of these sports medicine types of procedures, they're biologically oriented and biologically centered. And beyond the age, and this differs based on who you talk to and a patient's sort of age compared to their physiological age, but between the ages of about 35 or 40, they really start to decrease your body's ability to re-heal itself, particularly when it comes to things like articular cartilage, which are it doesn't have a great blood supply, and therefore it's just even trickier than bone to re-heal. So what we concentrate on is treating or helping surgeons treat the gap patient, these people who are sort of in between biologic types of procedures and what I'll call end stage procedures. And end stage.
When you say biologics, for the audience's understanding, is that you're talking about like hyaluronic injections, stem cell treatment, that type of treatment, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean, it could be hyaluronic acid injections. It could be stem cell treatment. It could be procedures like what are called MACI, which is like a matrix for an ACI
Yep.
procedure where they're trying to, as best as they can, take the native cartilage or take cartilage defects and regrow cartilage and recreate the articular cartilage conditions as best as they can. And in younger patients, those work quite well. They're not perfect, but they work quite well. And for a 25-year-old, they are they are great.
Yep.
But the same conditions can exist in a 45-year-old, and just based on their age, they are unlikely to have some of the same results as a 25-year-old.
Yep.
So when we think about what we do, why we exist, we have this conversation a lot of sort of like where do we fit in the orthopedic ecosystem, and what we aim to do is help surgeons treat their patients by avoiding these end stage procedures or significantly delaying the need. And I say end stage because it's a little bit different in the knee than it would be in the foot and ankle. In the knee, it'd be a knee replacement, an arthroplasty. In the foot and ankle, it'd be a fusion procedure or an arthrodesis. And we are those all these procedures, like I mentioned, they all work really well. What we are aiming to do, though, is to eliminate the need for those, not eliminate the need, but eliminate the need to have those revised. So most of those procedures, they have sort of a clock on them, and we want to eliminate the need to ever have to redo those implants. We want to delay those initial surgeries long enough that they never have to get revised.
And so, you're talking about total knees there, total knee replacements.
Yeah. I am, yeah. So the sort of plastic piece, I mean, a total knee can fail for a number of reasons, but the plastic piece that sits in between the metal, that sort of acts as your cartilage, and that's the wear component in a total knee replacement. So when we think about sort of benefits and how our procedures benefit both patients and surgeons, on the patient side of things, what we do is a less invasive approach, surely, than some sort of, in the knee, for example, a less invasive approach than a knee replacement. Of course, pain relief is at the center of every patient's expectations, and we can provide that. We can keep their activity levels at as whatever they want in terms of desired. Once patients who receive our products, once they rehab from their sort of surgical pain or their surgery itself, their knee is in a condition where we have plenty of videos of patients running on them, cross-country skiing, all the types of more strenuous activities that they want to do, they can do on using our products. And we're potentially sort of, the analogy that I like to make it, certainly on the knee, is when you have when your knee starts to undergo damage and it starts to sort of have some of these early arthritic changes that happen, you get on a train basically, and you're on a train. There's one station at the end of those train tracks, and that's having your knee replaced. So you get on that train and you're headed to the total knee station. Now, the holy grail of orthopedics is to be able to reverse the train, to be at a spot on the train, and then to be able to back the train up and end up in a better condition
restoration,
than you were. Yeah. That's like I said, that's the holy grail of orthopedics, and that one day hopefully will be solved by 3 guys at a lab at MIT or something, something like that. That being said, many of the existing treatments for middle-aged patients are really designed to keep the ride to the station as comfortable as possible. So things like steroid injections or hyaluronic acid injections, they are really just designed to minimize pain while the knee continues to get worse and worse and worse until you can get to that point where a surgeon is comfortable doing some sort of knee replacement. Now, where we come into the picture is that we are aiming to stop the train. We're not claiming that we can reverse it, but we are aiming to stop the train for a many-year period, not 3 months, 6 months, but for decades. Stop the train. It may start back up again, but if it starts up late enough again, by the time that patient ends up at the station, they're just at a different point in their life where they're much happier to be at the station. If I could just beat the analogy to death.
And then, so the ultimate goal is to delay that patient from arriving at the station at a period in time when they have the knee replaced and then have to have it replaced again. You want them
That's
to
right.
have it at 65, not 55, because if they're 55 and they make it to 75, they're going to have a revision done versus or a second replacement done versus if
right.
they have it done at 65. Maybe they have to have it done at 85, and maybe at 85 they don't even need to have it done because they're not that active at that point.
Yeah, and to have major revision joint replacement surgery very late in life it's a big undertaking for anyone, but those patients, for obvious reasons, they have a whole host of other medical comorbidities. They have worse bone quality. They sometimes, many times they can't handle surgery as well. They can get infected. They're more likely to get infected. Those
Anesthesia
are the
is an
types of.
issue. All sorts of complications. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and through technology like ours, we're hoping to. Those are the cases that we view sort of as the real enemy. Those are the ones that we want to remove from the overall kind of orthopedic ecosystem.
Yeah. And so the technology, the personalized implants are obviously the deliverable, but really it seems like the 3D imaging assessment that is done based on the patient's MRI, that's what really facilitates. That's the information that the physician needs to be able to determine that they're a good candidate for the case, but also the roadmap on what exactly needs to be fixed, and then gives them a roadmap also when they're in surgery to exactly where to place these implants. Is that correct? And if so, can you show us an example of what the report looks like?
Sure, it is correct. And the first interaction that any surgeon would have with an Episurf product is a software product for them, not a eventually we hope it's a hardware product as well, but at first it's a software product. So what we do, and this is at the core of everything we do, regardless of which joint that we're talking about, at the core of everything we do is what we call these damage marking reports. So a patient will go and get a 3D MRI using a protocol that we designed, and it will produce a couple of different things back for them, and I'll share here. So what our damage marking reports will do, this is just sort of an example, and I'll go through a couple of these, is we will map out the entire sort of cartilage surface and show the surgeon just exactly where the problem spot is and how severe the problem spot is. That's where the difference between red and pink comes in. And then on top of that, we will then sort of show this lower picture down here, how our implant would sort of play a role or fit in. The white here is all healthy. Cartilage, and we will show not only the condition of the cartilage, but the condition you can see over here, a little bit of purple color and blue color. That's the underlying bony condition. So are there cysts underneath the damaged cartilage? Is there bone marrow lesions underneath? And then we will show a surgeon, all of these other considerations that they are thinking about as well. Is there things to worry about or think about on the tibia? Is there things to worry or think about regarding the ACL or the ligaments? Things to think about and worry about in the patella, in the meniscus, things of that nature. See, Mike, because what we're doing, any solution, and we certainly are sort of in the middle of the continuum of care in someone's knee, any solution where there is something sort of on the left and the right, patient indications play a big role in this. And this is a conversation we have a lot with surgeons is patient selection. And what we're aiming to do is really help surgeons in their patient selection process. So we see all different types of knees. So you can see we see plenty of knees that are like this, that are sort of, it's a little spot that's damaged, and we can put kind of a coin type implant there just to replace it. It's a relatively healthy knee otherwise. We see knees that are sort of more damaged than that. They look like this, where they might have damage in multiple locations on their knee. And we have many surgeons in Europe who are using multiple implants of ours in the same patient. They're opening the knee up and almost sort of like spot welding the joint in just its damaged areas. So, but you can see as these people get sort of a little bit worse, obviously there's more red and pink on this and more blue, more underlying bony problems. There are other considerations that we will start to flag for the surgeon and say, well, just keep this in mind when you're thinking about this. We're confident that our implant will work, but there are just other considerations that you may want to keep in mind. Sort of further along the damage curve, you'll see things. We'll see things like this, where almost the entire knee is pink, and it says over here, no implant has been suggested. This is a case that we are willingly sort of walking away from, that we know that our implant not only is not indicated for, but will not result in a really good outcome. This patient does need something further along. This patient does need a total knee. They'll need something further along the kind of intervention sliding scale.
Yep.
With
They're
a
at the
whole host
station
of other
already.
considerations. Yeah, exactly. They're at the station. So you can see there's a whole list of different things that we can see. Different cartilage problems in the patella, cartilage problems in the tibia, damaged or ruptured meniscus. This person does really need a total knee. And with cases like this, we're actually, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but we're happy, or we're proud in some sense of these types of cases, because we know that we're playing a role in their selection process. This surgeon will look really good, frankly, in the patient's eyes for having gone through this type of workup, and he can use these models to explain to the patient, listen, here's the exact condition of your knee. It looks bad enough, and therefore this is based on these findings. This is why I think you'd be a good candidate for a knee replacement, rather than just sort of patients walking into the office feeling like they're just a stop on the kind of like surgery assembly line, and it doesn't matter what condition you get a total knee, 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 no matter who you are.
Yep.
We do this also for the talus. We've spent most of our time talking about the knee, but we have a talus solution that's available in Europe, and we do, we offer the same type of thing for the talus, and we can show different levels of damage and exactly how our implant would fit in as a solution, and they can sort of map along how the implant would fit, and in this case how they would sort of access the talus. So what we also can do here, and can you see the 3D model
Yep.
that I have up?
Yep.
Okay, great. So what we also do is we can offer surgeons this sort of 3D look into the knee, and they can use this for demonstration purposes with the patient, discussing their individual condition. We can map out we can segment the knee, map out the specific cartilage. They can add the cartilage or take it away on the different views. They can take away the entire femur. We can show them with just cartilage and implant. We can add, we can do this in there's a lot of different visual ways that they can show this. We can even show them sort of how different images are showing things things like MRI images, where they would exist all along the plane of the knee. It just makes for a really nice patient demonstration. Patients, it's tough for patients to read conventional MRIs and understand exactly what it is that the condition of their knee looks like. So we use these damage marking reports as a fundamental and essential part of everything that we do, whether a patient ultimately ends up receiving an implant of ours, or in some cases, like I showed, it's just not the right thing. We want to play a role in play a supportive role in the patient selection process.
The development of that patient's pathology and getting as much information in the physician's hands as possible, so they can make an informed decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's I gotta think that's an eye opener for a physician when they get a report and they say, and you guys recommend, hey, we recommend you go to a total knee on this. That's gotta build some emotional currency with that individual.
We certainly hope so, and we've seen that on many. We've seen that on many occasions, where the first interaction with the company is unfortunately just a patient that is not well suited for something like we make, and we give them the report. We say, sorry, we don't think we can help you in this occurrence. Please come back. Please come back again, and they typically will.
Yeah. So what procedures do you guys make implants for? Obviously, we talked about the knee. What's available here in the U.S. and what's available OUS? Do you have any models that you can show of kind of the technology,
Sure.
et cetera?
Yeah. So in the knee. So if this is a patient's knee, we make a couple of different styles of implant for the knee. Sort of the smallest and most simple would be what we call the Episealer Solo. So it sits at this, you can see a little sort of damaged
Yep.
spot right here on this model. So what we do is we produce a customized guide. So this is per patient. Reps and distributors sort of love our technology because we're not to mention we're ASC friendly. These procedures, of course, can be done in the surgery center. Everything that we provide to the hospital shows up sterile. So our implant and all of our personalized instruments, they all show up sterile. There's no trays to process ahead of time or afterwards too. So if you're a rep or a distributor, oftentimes if you're doing a procedure at a hospital or a surgery center, that's 3 trips to that facility. There's the trip the day before, there's the trip the day of the surgery, and then there's the trip the day after to pick up everything. So all of our stuff, there's about a dictionary-sized box that shows up. Everything's sterile in there. The implants get put in, the instruments get used once and then discarded, and the rep or distributor walks out and with no equipment. Yeah, so exactly.
The instrumentation utilized is a one-time technology as well, where it just gets thrown away.
That's right. Yeah, one-time use per patient, because these types of implants that we make, because we are keeping, or we're allowing the surgeon to keep all or many of the native structures of the knee. So, in a total knee replacement, both of your meniscus gets taken out, your ACL gets taken out, sometimes your PCL gets taken out, all of your articular cartilage gets taken out, a centimeter of bone all around all 3 bones gets taken out. The surgeon, before they put those implants in, they are starting from a kind of a clean biomechanical slate almost. Yep. But with our implants, because we're a bit earlier on in the continuum of care, we are sort of asking our implants, it's a high demand type of thing, we're asking our implants to work in concert with all of the native structures of the knee. So our implant needs to work, of course, with all of the articular cartilage, and that's where the personalization really helps, is that we are personalizing the surface on an individual patient, so there's no difference. The surgeon can't tell where the implant sort of starts and where the native cartilage stops. But we're asking the implants that we make to work with the native meniscus, with the native ACL, with the native PCL, with all of these native structures. So the level of precision really, really matters. And so what we do is we make these personalized drill guides. This sits on the knee. It kind of locks into place. The surgeon will kind of move it around, and then all of a sudden move it, and then realize really quickly, oh yeah, that's the exact spot where it needs to sit. And then we make these drill guides, so the surgeon can do a sort of a preliminary drill with these personalized drills that are, again, these are all for this specific implant.
Unbelievable.
And then when I was talking about a level of precision, so this sort of brown socket, this light brown socket that you see here, this can be moved a number of different times. Each tick on this, as I rotate it around, that's 0.2 millimeters of increased depth. So the surgeon on a micron sort of level is able to personalize the depth to make sure that the implant is sitting in the exact spot that it needs to, so it doesn't sit up and kind of act as a plow on the other riff.
So there's
exactly. Yeah, so we allow everything to be super, super precise in how the surgery is actually done. And then we've got these individual trials that they have. It's like a sort of a trial on a stick, and then a real implant that goes in. So we make these. So this is sort of an example of a smaller one that would be sort of what we call a solo, which is just sort of almost a dime size.
Yep.
And then they get sort of progressively bigger and bigger. We make a number of these, what we call a twin implant, which it's sort of like a figure 8 or a snowman almost. So where the damage is a little bit sort of more kind of elongated on the patient, but all of the same sort of steps, exist all along the way. It's just 2 holes that they're drilling. So they take this piece out and just flip it over and drill the other the other hole, and all the same steps exist. And then we make something for the trochlea, the groove where the patella interacts in the knee.
Yep.
And it's all the same, it's all the same sort of processes. Here we're just sort of dealing with the center of the knee rather than the inside or the outside.
Yep.
So we make this product is available in the US right now only through an IDE trial. There's no good, as you can see, we think there's a high level of innovation here. Oftentimes the downside of a high level of innovation is a lack of predicate devices. So this product is available in the US right now through an IDE trial. We also have available now in the U.S., commercially available as of just about a month ago. We have a patellofemoral system, which takes the trochlea implant that I was just mentioning, the implant that sits in the center of the patient's knee, and pairs it with the first ever that we're aware of customized patella implant. So we're doing all of the same types of things on the femur that we typically would do. We're doing them on the patella, on the underside of the kneecap, on the kneecap as well. All the patella, the trochlea, these are areas, the talus I mentioned in the ankle, these are areas where the bony shape it's just highly irregular. You and I and the next 10 people you would meet, we all have very, very different sized and shaped patellas, not just size in terms of diameter, but curvature and angulation, all of those types of things. Anywhere where the bony anatomy is highly irregular, those are really places that we think our sort of personalized technologies sort of really shine. So in the U.S., everything right now to date is knee focused, whether it's through the single implant, the just metal implant that's part of an IDE trial, or the 2-implant metal and plastic patellofemoral solution. Now, we also, as I've mentioned, in Europe for a number of years, we've sold a talus product, which does all the same types of things. All of the steps are the same. We even provide a personalized osteotomy guide because access to the talus in the ankle, you have to sort of go around or through, oftentimes the tibia, but potentially the fibula based on where the actual damage is. So we'll provide a personalized osteotomy guide so they can make that cut that they need to access the talus at the exact implant or at the exact level that it needs to be, and it will also sort of give them a trajectory for a screw when they're ultimately going to reattach that piece of bone, so they can sort of pre-drill for their screw ahead of time. So that product is available has been available in Europe for a number of years as well.
And then you guys have a toe product, or is that in development?
It is, yes. That's in development as well. Again, another one of these areas where the toe, as we think of like the first metatarsal portion of the foot, it's not just one joint. We think of these joints sometimes as one, but there's oftentimes subjoints. The knee is oftentimes discussed in 3 different compartments. There's the medial, the lateral, and the anterior compartment, and those 3 joints together make up your knee. The biodynamic or the biomechanical forces are different on the toe, but the toe has multiple sort of subjoints that exist as well, and the interaction between the metatarsal and the sesamoid bones is something that's been discussed for a long, long time, and probably underutilized in implant design, because it's just very difficult when there's a high variance of anatomy from patient to patient. If you're not using it to create a solution where you're just going to make 100,000 of them ahead of time and try to sell those, it's very difficult when there's a big degree of difference from patient to patient.
And what with the toe product that you guys are developing? What's the station for that? Is it what is it trying to avoid? What is the use case? Is it a fusion of the toe?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a fusion. It's not a toe replacement. It's most often a fusion. And again, that's a procedure that works really, really well from a pain standpoint. Patients have their toes fused, and it does relieve their pain. But importantly, patients don't want that. Especially, I mean, imagine if you're a 50-year-old woman and you're in a setting either professionally or socially where it's pretty normal to wear heels.
Right.
If you have your toe fused, that's you're done. There's no heel wearing with your toe. There's no heel wearing with your toe fused. So these procedures, like I've mentioned a number of times, whether it be arthroplasty or arthrodesis, they work really well. The problem is, because almost sometimes they work so well in the older patients, there's been a lack of solutions available to the middle-aged patients, and there's like age creep that kind of starts to happen with some of these procedures that were always intended to be end-stage procedures, but because there's been a lack of viable real solutions, you get this age creep where these end-stage procedures start getting used earlier and earlier and earlier in life, and those are the patients that are often the least happy, the least satisfied. They come back needing revision surgery. There's a mismatch sometimes of expectations between what they want to do and what they can do. So that's where we think we sort of play a role, is in this underaddressed middle portion of the orthopedic continuum of care.
And where are you guys at with reimbursement on it? Do you guys have a separate code? Is there existing codes that you access? And are you guys, if not a separate code, are you guys pursuing that?
So obviously it depends. There's a difference product to product. On the patellofemoral system and eventually with the toe system, these are markets that there are existing players in the market. There's existing, reimbursement pathways, and even though we think there are some product, differences, we'll be able to fit comfortably within the existing coding infrastructure. As it pertains to the single implant that's part of an IDE trial, a secondary reason sometimes to do these big IDE trials, it's not just to get through FDA, it's because the level of evidence that is sort of pumped out of these randomized control trials are things that payers are asking for if you're really giving them something brand new. So we do plan on getting our own code eventually, post IDE trial.
Yeah. Is there anybody out there that's doing anything like this with a combination of the damage assessment and then also a personalized implant? I guess talking specifically to what's approved here in the U.S. for partial knee, is there anything like it out there?
There are a handful, there's one company in particular that does make custom or personalized knee replacements, but these are total knees or partial knee replacements where they're taking the whole they're not just sort of fixing the damaged area, they're taking full compartments of the knee and replacing it. There are also companies, there's a couple of companies out there that they're doing. They've been trying for a number of years to do what we do with sort of this spot welding approach, like I mentioned.
That was what I was
this sort of spot welding approach that we do. There's no one out there that does the personalized version of that, and we've seen companies that many years ago they came onto the market and they had some initial success. But again, if you can't help the surgeon in their patient selection process, what you're going to see is the implants either get rapidly overused and you start to have problems because it was really the wrong surgery for the wrong patient, or they get underused because the surgeon is like, they're so nervous that they say like, well, I think that there is probably that one person that every 3 years would come in who would be perfect for this, and they're almost so nervous because they don't have a supportive kind of adjunctive patient selection tool. And that's that's where we see our software capabilities as really providing that supportive function to help in their patient selection journey, where they know ahead of time when they go into the surgery, they're not on pins and needles like, am I really doing the right thing for this person? All of those doubts have been taken care of 6 weeks before the actual surgery day in a much less stressful environment than the operating room.
Yeah. So the digital solution really is what enables the technology to be grown at scale, because one, it allows the physician to identify enough patients that they can be comfortable with the procedure, which if you're only doing one every 2 or 3 years, then you're kind of like, well, I'm not really comfortable doing this. And two, it validates their decision of this is the right technology for this patient.
Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, we think we're using software to produce better hardware, not on the per patient level. And we're also collecting a huge amount of information, frankly, on sort of our type of implant. If patients who receive our implants, if they are left untreated, they're on that, like I mentioned, they're on that train going to the total knee station. They're not just going to magically get better. So what we are getting a really good snapshot of is sort of next decade's total knee replacements, because not every patient comes through us, but we're collecting a huge amount of information on what the sort of all the people that get their knees replaced today. We're getting a snapshot to what those knees looked like 10 years ago. And there's a lot of sort of interesting avenues that as a company, we can probably go down as we're just sort of collecting this huge pool, frankly, of what people's knees look like in an early arthritic condition.
Yeah. No, that's neat. I want to be cognizant of getting you out of here on time, but I think the thing that I'd like to close with is it's, personalized medicine is definitely, I think we all know that it's the way of the future, but you have to, as with anything, and I've written about this on LinkedIn, with one of the big couple key takeaways from JP Morgan last week where one, there has to be some sort of validation of the value proposition, and I think that's the unique piece that you have here is the technology, the implants work because they're personalized, but you have the validation of the value proposition through the software, which the physician can see on the front end. The other thing that I think is really unique about the company is, man, anything that is removing patients from the hospital and taking them, transferring that care from the hospital to the home or transferring it from the hospital to the ASC, that is hot right now. That is top of mind. So I have to think that, if these patients or these physicians are looking at this and saying, hey, I could do the total knee in the hospital, or I could do this in the ASC. There's got to be a drive to get that, not only from an economic perspective, but also doing it in the ASC, and this being a much less significant recovery for that patient, and faster ambulation and lower readmissions. All of those, it plays into all of the hot buttons of healthcare these days. So it's exciting, really exciting. It'll be fun to watch you guys move forward, and certainly, best of luck with the IDE trial and bringing some of the other technologies that are available across the pond over here. And at some point, maybe we can get you back on the show and do a recap in a year or two down the road and see where things are at.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Well, I appreciate it, buddy. That's it for this edition of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. Tune in next time, and appreciate you guys checking out the show today, and we'll be in touch soon.